Los Angeles, I'm and most Hollywood nights. She goes to California, oh, California.
What you say about Los Angeles?
LA got the people saying,
Los Angeles.
You're listening to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. It's time for another episode of Corner of the Galaxy from the Box, the show that gets you behind the scenes of the LA Galaxy and into the minds of soccer reporters and MLS experts. Your hosts for the day are Corner of the Galaxy's Josh Guesman and LA Times soccer reporter Kevin Baxter. Let's start the show.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Corner of the Galaxy from the Box on cornerofthegalaxy.com. I'm your host, Josh Guesman, coming to you on Monday, June 12th. LA Galaxy get a 1-1 draw, surprising enough, against the best in the West, St. Louis City. We're going to talk about that game, get you through that. There's some LA Galaxy news, of course, as there always is. We'll throw you some stats and that stuff as the Galaxy get ready for a little bit of quiet time, right? No game until the 21st against Sporting Kansas City. So we'll be watching that, be paying attention to that, and seeing where the LA Galaxy go and all that sort of fun stuff that goes. And we'll be talking about the injury to Chicharito, even though we sort of previewed that on Thursday night's show. So a lot to get to, a lot to do. Glad to have everybody with us, including Mr. Kevin Baxter. Kev, how's it going, bud?
Hey, thank you very much. That was very nice of you to congratulate me on that big victory this weekend. I appreciate it.
Yeah, did you do a good job?
Celebrating.
Oh yes. Yeah, are you happy with another title there?
Yes. This is Pep, the only guy to win the treble twice.
See, it was impressive. I saw our friend Ariel Castillo was out there among the masses doing her crazy stuff, covering Manchester City. So always fun. Hope she's safe and enjoying her craziness. And
yeah, she was at the parade today.
Yeah.
And in tomorrow's LA Times, I write that. I think it's actually it's printed Tuesday. That Pep Guardiola should probably move on. I mean, he has no place to go but down. Nobody's ever repeated a treble. He's won 4 of the last 5 Premier League titles. He does have a dynasty. Only one player is out of contract. Guesman is out of contract. And of the 13 players he used, those are the players he used in the game. Of the 13 players he used, only 3 are older than 30. So it's set up to be a dynasty. But again, nobody's ever repeated his treble. So if he doesn't win the treble, it's theoretically a step down. And the 115 violations of fair play alleged by the English Premier League, that's going to be adjudicated soon. There's no way that, I don't know what the penalties will be. It can go anywhere from expulsion from the league, which they're not going to expel Man City, or it could be a points deduction. But whatever it is, I think it's going to reflect poorly on Guardiola if he's still there. It's going to be something in his background anyways. He said earlier that if he finds out management was lying to him, that he would resign. And management told him that they were completely innocent. They're not I don't see how they're innocent 115 times. So I think maybe, but then where does he go? He's already conquered the Premier League. He's already conquered the Bundesliga. He's already conquered La Liga. Perhaps he could get a lot of money from PSG because they want to win Champions League. Right. Maybe he goes there.
He comes to the LA Galaxy to replace the only guy who won the treble here in Major League Soccer. Is that?
And then he said many times that he wants to go toe to toe with Bruce Arena.
That's what he said. I know. I'm sure.
Maybe that's where he winds up.
Oh yes. Always good. Well, good. Glad you're enjoying the weekend. I think Galaxy fans should actually be, well, maybe not like happy, but semi-satisfied in the way the LA Galaxy played against St. Louis. I'm not going to say it was pretty, Kevin, but the result is a point. The result was another come from behind sort of ability to get some points. The LA Galaxy, buckle up for this stat. Nobody has this stat anywhere. Now unbeaten in their last 2 league games, Kevin. The only time...
Not only that, they're 4-4-1 in their last 9 games in all competition. If you go back to May 10th, 2-4-1 in MLS. But, that's the thing with this Galaxy team. I can't decide whether they're just absolutely horrible, or whether they're about to catch fire. Again, 4-4-1 in all competition,
right?
2-4-1 in MLS since May 10th. But they are in the cellar. They're behind Colorado. Well, actually ahead of Colorado, I think, because of points per game. But right now they're at 0.81 points per game.
Correct.
If they finish the season that way, it'll be the worst season ever. That in 2017 they were 0.94 points per game. They would finish with less than 30 points. They're on pace for less than 30 goals. They're on pace to allow 57 goals. Their goal differential would be minus 28, I think, over the season if they kept going this way. I don't know. All those things seem to be trending bad, but then when you look at the other side, again, 4-4-1 their last 9 games. They did come back to tie the best team in the Western Conference on the road. Mm-hmm. That was a pretty outstanding performance considering everything that's just happened in the last week. And they just acquired a new player. This Douglas Costa guy is really good.
I'm sure Greg Vanney was talking about how he's going to be the new summer signing, this Douglas Costa guy.
He was really good. I was impressed.
I thought he was okay. I know that he won Team of the Week honors, and we can show you that. Douglas Costa on, Team of the Match Day, because, we're doing that now. Team of the Match Day honors, Douglas Costa was there. Cool. Gets his little nod. I will tell you this right now, because I actually looked it up. It was funny. You know how group, sometimes I think that group chats are the key to really figuring out the best stats. Douglas Costa played 89 minutes, officially 89 minutes in this game, because he basically came off 1 minute before the end of the game, right? And even though it was in stoppage time, that's how they determine how many minutes from the end of the game did you come off. That's how many minutes you played, because the stoppage time is supposed to add all that up. So he played 89 minutes. The last time Douglas Costa played more than 89 minutes, you would have to go back to the third and fourth game. Sorry, wrong one. Let me find it. You have to go back to the third and fourth game that he ever played for the LA Galaxy. That was on May 14th and May 18th of 2022, where he went the complete 90 minutes back-to-back. That did not happen at any other time between these games and when he just went 89 minutes recently.
Yeah, 89 minutes, and this was his first start since April 29th. And Vanney said the plan was for him to go 45. They were going to take him out at halftime, and Costa said, no, I want to keep going. And then throughout the second half, it was like they kept waving him over. Like, are you good? Are you good? Yep. No, I want to keep going.
Yeah, final score 1-1 here in this one. 68th minute, the Gianchini goal was outstanding. We'll talk about that. I wanted to get you lineups here real quick, and then I want to dive into Douglas Costa, because I think that's there's two really interesting sort of talking points for me out of this game. One is Douglas Costa and one is Dejan Joveljic. Those are sort of my ones. We can also talk Ricky Puig as well, because I think there's something to see. But Joveljic
was also very, very good at times.
That was sort of the case for the entire defense. They were good at times. They were bad at times. Neil didn't have one of, I think, his better games. He played well in spurts, but he had some pretty big mistakes that he was lucky to sort of get away with. Joveljic up top, you had Tyler Boyd, Ricky Puig, and Douglas Costa in there. You have Brugman and Delgado. Aude, Neal, Cáceres, and Caligari. The back four, you'd expect Jonathan Bond in goal for this one. The bench, a little bit different maybe, and certainly Efrain Alvarez makes this bench a lot easier with Chicharito gone, right? Raheem Edwards in there, Chris Mavinga in there, Gino Vivi. Leerdam comes sort of back onto the bench, and he's been on the bench, but, sort of in there. You're looking for the extra guy that sort of comes on there. It's Alvarez and, because Vivi's sort of been playing, so it's Alvarez who sort of gets the Chicharito nod, if you will, with Chicharito being out. And let's start there for a second. Chicharito announced on Friday, LA Galaxy announced on Friday, ACL. He's out. Basically, a regular person, it's 6 to 9 months recovery. I don't think Chicharito is going to be any faster than that, but I certainly expect that the LA Galaxy will use the season-ending injury list as well.
Well, yeah, even if it were 6 months, 5 months, he's not going to make it back. There's a couple of things with this. My understanding is it's a grade 3 tear. There are, ACL tears go in gradations. One, which is what grade 1 tear, which is what Carlos Vela had a couple of years ago when he got hurt against the Galaxy. That was not really a micro tear, but it was a tear, but it wasn't completely ruptured. He came back in a span of weeks. I think it was 6 to 8 weeks. My understanding is with Chicharito, and this has not been confirmed by the Galaxy, but that it's a grade 3 tear, which means it's completely ruptured. It's torn open. So that's a much more difficult tear. Now, Chicharito is, I think, 35, going to be 36, or is it 34, going to be 35? I think he just celebrated his 35th birthday. In any case, he's the same age as Christian Press, who had an ACL tear last year. She still hasn't come back yet. It's been 12 months now. She's apparently had to undergo 3 operations. I'm not saying that Christian Press and Chicharito are the same, but I'm saying that they did have the same injury at the same age, and it's taken her, and they're both fit, experienced athletes, and it's taken her this long to come back. I actually wrote in my story about Chicharito, I suggested that this could be career ending. And the reason I suggested that has nothing to do with his work rate or his desire or anything else. He's going to be 36 by the time he can come back. It's got a lot of miles. He's played a lot of games. And he wasn't playing all that well this season. I think if Chicharito had finished the season continuing to play the way he did, I think a lot of teams would have looked at him, not the Galaxy, other teams would have looked at him and said, you can't fall off the edge of the world that quickly. The last 2 years, he scored 35 goals, second most in MLS over that span. He's worth a look. He's worth $1 million, maybe $1.5 million at the TAM money deal, or maybe someone in Mexico takes a chance on him. That guy coming back from serious injury, I'm not sure that's the same gamble. So I'm not saying Chicharito doesn't want to play again. I'm just not sure who's going to give him a shot. And I don't see Chicharito deciding to be a guy that, like Giassi's artist, I'm going to play off the bench. I'm going to be a bench guy. No, Chicharito wants to be a starter. He wants to be a DP type player. And, maybe this is the thing that makes him consider, look, I've got other things I want to do with my life. Yeah. I hope he comes back. I'm a huge Chicharito fan, but I just see there's a lot of negatives in this.
It is. The only thing that I would sort of caution, and I get your progression, it makes sense, right? The only thing I would caution is Chicharito doesn't seem like the kind of guy who wants to go out that way. Maybe he's the kind of guy who wants to go out on his own terms. And so this guy likes hard work. You can see it in the way that he does it. So the recovery or anything like that, and not that you put this on him, but I see him able to accomplish that. I see him sitting there, having the surgery, doing the recovery that he needs to be done, and then as soon as he's able to start working, starting to work, putting the plan in, and doing the work, because he's never been a guy who's been afraid of work, and especially the way that he transformed himself here whenever he came to the Galaxy, had that first year, that was the COVID year, right? All that sort of thing, got blown up, and there was nothing good out of 2020. But you saw him come back in 2021. You saw him in 2022. You saw the work effort, the ability to sort of transform his body, to focus on the physical aspects of these things. I mean, things get brittle as you get older, and this ACL is just, it's a freak thing that happens, and especially, I think they said it was the first major injury of his career.
Yeah, non-contact. No one touched them.
Right.
I don't think they were playing on turf. They were on grass, right?
Right. Yeah, they were on grass. So no. Yeah, there was nothing there. Although I will say, and I'm sure I'll get hate for this from the RSL. RSL field has always been known as a very hard surface to play on. I know that they replaced grass and done some things, but the ball always bounces very high. I think it has to do with sort of the mountain air and the mountain climate, and just how the soil sort of reacts with the grass and the way that they're trying to do it. The ball is just always very bouncy. Compare that with St. Louis, where it looks like they got the shaggy dog out there over the weekend, which in a first-year stadium with grass that you're trying to make sure it stays in its first full cycles and all the things you're having, you usually leave it a little bit longer, but that's just, I still digress. The deal with Chicharito is I think that he still comes back and plays soccer. It's not going to be with the LA Galaxy. That's done. And I think that what happens now is what he wants to do next. And I think he'd want to go somewhere. I don't know if it's Mexico. I know you and I were kicking around ideas like the A-League and heading to Australia, because I believe his kids are down there with his wife. She could also be in London at this point as well. So it could be in some different places and a whole bunch of things. But I don't know. To me, it's sort of like he still wants to go out on his own. He wants to be able to walk off the field instead of being carried off the field that last time. That seems like a Chicharito thing to me. So
yeah, it does. And it just needs to be, I do hope he comes back. And he deserves a chance to walk up. He deserves a chance to walk off the field with the Mexican national team as well. He's arguably the best player in Mexican national team history, and that's been taken away from him. He hasn't played with them since 2019, right. So he deserves that as well. Hard to see that happening either. He'll find a fit. I mean, maybe back at Chivas of Guadalajara, his family has a lot of history with them, and that's right. Where he started.
We'll see. I will say this: if there's a nod to Chicharito no longer being with the LA Galaxy, I enjoyed covering him a lot. Difficult player to ask questions to, in my opinion. And Kevin, you may have a different opinion on that.
No, that's why we have Sophie.
Yeah, right. That's Sophie. Sophie asks all the best Chicharito questions. The Chicharito whisperer has always been the canon. Sophie herself. But I enjoyed covering him. I've enjoyed covering a lot of players. He was a totally unique, as much as Zlatan was a unique being all to himself, Chicharito is very much a unique being all to himself. There's nobody else. There's no copies. He's not trying to. He's writing his own path through all this stuff. Kevin, as much as you're saying.
I think you mentioned 2020. Not just the bad season. He looked. He had the injuries.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned injury problems. That was with the calf injuries. He was out for quite a big segment of that year. I thought he got big. Thought he got a little overweight. Not that I'm one to talk, but I'm not trying to play MLS soccer. He got a little big. I think he got out of shape. I don't know that he had the desire. It was hard to have desire that year with everything going wrong. But then for him, his grandfather died, who was very close to. He had the divorce or separation from his wife. It was a lost year for him in every way possible.
Right.
And then he couldn't go to his grandfather's funeral because of COVID. So yeah, you mentioned Chicharito being this unique guy. I really think the uniqueness when he started getting into the mental health and the well-being and the this is not important and why do we do this and all that kind of.
Oh, Kevin, we were so close. We had you talking. You were making lucid points. It was like the first time ever on this show, and then you just disappear. All right, we'll get Kevin back while we work on that. So again, the Chicharito thing, I enjoyed covering him. I enjoyed seeing just what he was able to do. I like the comeback story that he was able to put together. It's happy trails for Chicha. I mean, I know there's going to be a lot of people who say his time with the LA Galaxy is a failure. As an individual, wasn't a failure. That's for sure. Wasn't a failure at all. I think he'll find someplace. I think he'll find one more place to go. I think he'll get back and then he'll decide where that is. And then I think perhaps the next one is the time when it's time to retire for him. But I just can't see somebody like Chicharito going out like that. That would be interesting. So a little bit back to the game here. And looking at this LA Galaxy team and trying to see, Joveljic starting in place of Chicharito, you knew that was there. I thought it was interesting on the broadcast. They were sort of talking about how, Greg Vanney said that they weren't going to be able to change tactics very much with Chicharito out because there wasn't any time in between the games, between it happening on Wednesday and this game on Sunday. But maybe tactics change a little bit going forward is sort of the implied thing going there. But with Dejan Joveljic up top, I would say that St. Louis's two center backs, Parker and Bartlett, did an excellent job in terms of shutting him down. I found that Dejan Joveljic wasn't as physical as I expected him to be in this game. As a matter of fact, he got tossed around a bunch of times in this. He made one or two really good runs that I think the LA Galaxy found. The lack of crosses coming from the side still hurting Joveljic in service. I don't know. For me, if we're being very, very honest, I want to see Joveljic start stuff further outside. I want to see him starting runs further outside and running in to the middle instead of starting his runs straight down the middle all the time. I feel like it gives him nowhere to go. I felt like his hold-up play was non-existent. And I thought maybe the physicality from St. Louis, maybe they were too physical for him. He couldn't handle it in some of these areas. But there was no hold-up play. Very rarely did he get the ball and was able to lay it off and sort of let to build. He doesn't drop as deep as Chicharito does. And so, there's all these sort of mixtures of what you're trying to do with him. I think the only thing that really covered for the fact that Joveljic was very much missing in action was runs through the middle by Tyler Boyd, Douglas Costa floating into that space as well. And I thought Douglas Costa, again, had a pretty good game for Douglas Costa. We can certainly talk about the goal and we can talk about all the things that sort of led to the goal that were able to get them in a good position on that. But a lot of the good runs, a lot of the good passings with Ricky Puig and Douglas Costa and everything else that was sort of happening in that and was able to sort of, see how Douglas Costa was going there. Kevin, do we have you back? Oh, nice. Nice. You have to click the camera button there, stud. Otherwise, it yeah. See, I would like to explain to everybody why Kevin has more problems than anybody else on Skype is that. No, that has nothing to do with it. Because my grandmother, before she passed away, knew how to use Skype. From her deathbed, she could have figured that one out. No, the big deal is that you use it through the browser, which is the worst way to use Skype ever in the history because the company that you work for decides that you're not trustworthy enough to have the actual app installed. Yes. I was going to say, just barely for a little bit? Okay.
You want me to try to disconnect and call back? Or
we can try one more time. Why don't you give it a shot and we'll see if that works better. So Kevin will go away and then maybe we'll get him back for a second. It is because he uses the browser. And you can't even hear him. Great. So it's not even coming through at all. Wonderful. So lovely. Gotta love it all. That's what I say. I can hear Kevin on my side and it's recording on the podcast. And no, I don't even know what your screen name is because that's not even a good screen name. It's not for me using Skype in 2023. Skype is far superior to Zoom because Zoom doesn't come with NDI. And I know that's one of those silly things. But all right, let's see if we can get Kevin back on.
There's the face again. Yeah, everybody missed that, I'm sure.
Okay.
So did I get my whole point in about how Chicharito, I thought, changed after the dismal 2020 season? All the things that he went through, he began to sort of refocus or rethink, his life in soccer and its role in his life, and he became very introspective.
Yeah.
But that's the interesting Chicharito to me. I thought Chicharito the first year, I've always been a big fan. I was a little bit in awe of him being there. If you remember, he didn't do the second press conference of the year after that first home game. And he was I don't want to say he was diva-esque, but he looked like he was going to be a little bit difficult. And then everything went south with COVID and we started not really caring because it wasn't really important.
Right.
But the second year when he came, remember he did all that stuff in the off season. He got a nutritionist and he had all those Instagram videos he was posting all the time. He came back in 2021, a completely different guy, and then wound up with the 35 goals in the 2 seasons. Rededicated himself to soccer. I think he got over the fact he wasn't in Europe anymore. I think that was a problem the first year. He got over that and decided he was going to do the best he could here. The Chicharito, the last 2 seasons, 2 seasons plus.
Right.
That's like you said, he was a very interesting personality.
He was. All right, let's go back to the game. We're talking about Douglas Costa and his ability to sort of fit into this game and find his spaces and do the things that Douglas Costa. You mentioned that he was only supposed to go 45 minutes, and then he ends up going longer. That's certainly there. I know that there is going to be sort of this want, and I think it's from everybody. And I quite honestly, with Team of the Week, sure, if you want to give Douglas Costa Team of the Week, there was a lot of moments in that game where he was MIA. And I think you wanted him to sort of be a little bit more in there. In fact, St. Louis should have scored off of a sleeping Douglas Costa as he was trying to cover Stroud, who was coming into the back end, and they ended up messing up that play, but he was wide open because Costa didn't track his runner, right? And so I think you're going to get moments from Douglas Costa, and there were some outstanding moments of the Galaxy, especially in the first maybe 15 minutes of that match, of the Galaxy breaking press. St. Louis pressing high, the Galaxy passing through them, Douglas Costa, Ricky Puig combining. And by the way, I think that was better whenever Costa was wide, Kevin, and we talk about wingers all the time and how the width is sort of opens up with Ricky Puig and his ability to do the things that he wants to do. And so I think you saw a lot of that in the first half. I think the second half that went away a little bit as Costa drifted further inside and probably further inside, almost up into a second forward formation a lot of times. Joveljic didn't get any service, but Joveljic didn't make a ton of runs either. So, I mean, you're going to look at this game, and this game should be a net positive if you're an LA Galaxy fan, because going against the best in the West in a place where I don't think they've lost this year, right, Kevin? Were they at home? Was St. Louis undefeated at home? I think they had some draws, or they lost. No, because I think they went to Colorado and lost on an early one.
Yeah.
And they had scored.
Lost in a row.
Yeah, and they had scored something like 12 goals or 13 goals in their last 3 home games, and the opponent had scored 1 goal. So the Galaxy coming in there and actually creating something in this case and scoring a goal was huge in terms of what you're able to do against St. Louis. It just sucks that where the LA Galaxy are right now, Kevin, needing points and needing wins and needing everything, overshadows the job that they just did. I think the coaching staff gets it. I think the LA Galaxy players get it. And so I think that's the good part about this, is that they understand that they just accomplished something in St. Louis. And as somebody in the chat room said, it was a little funny as someone in the chat room says, oh, great, the Galaxy are that like trap game now, right? Where you go and play the Galaxy and you're like, oh, they're last in the West. The Galaxy are not last in the West because they've been playing crappy soccer for 90 minutes out of every game. That's not why they are last in the West. They're last in the West because they haven't scored any goals, and in moments, they haven't been very good.
What did you think in the 78th minute? And so the Galaxy had some good moments, but it looked like the game was getting away from them. They were down a goal. They were playing, as you said, one of the best defensive teams in the league at home, sold out crowd going crazy. And then Vanney makes 4 substitutions at one time in the 78th minute. He brings on Judge, Malvinga.
Mavinga. There's no L in there. I promise. That guy too.
Both those guys came on. Aguirre and Leardam, I think, was the other one that came on. And he took off Joveljic. He took off Jalen Neal. It to me at that moment, my first thought when I saw that 4 substitutions at once, 4 of the main starters took him off. My thought was, well, he's conceding. He's just running some guys out there, getting some minutes.
Right.
And that he was conceding. And then 7 minutes later, Aguirre, one of the guys who comes on, scores the goal.
Yeah, by the way, great run. And Costa starts that by, listen, horrible play by St. Louis. If you are a St. Louis fan, you're looking at the ball that is taken off the feet of the defender in that area as possibly one of the worst things you could do at that time. Right. And this comes on the heels of the really bad giveaway by Jalen Neal that should have gone for St. Louis' second goal. I don't know if I'm with the announcers that all he had to do was pass sideways. Neal actually tracked back and was cutting down some lanes. But more than likely, if he puts a ball over to his left-hand side, then he's able to score, and the Galaxy are out of that game. It's 2-0 and the game's put away. As it is, ball sits on a player's foot too long. Douglas Costa does a little bit of back pressing, able to steal the ball very easily, passes it into Judd. Judd does a wonderful job of hold up. Again, we talked about Joveljic and not being able, I did while you weren't here, Kevin. I talked about Joveljic and not being able to hold up the ball. Judd was able to hold up the ball in that situation. He received the ball with his back to goal. He looked for a turn inside. It wasn't there. And then he fed the ball back out to Douglas Costa, where Costa was able to get around and fire in that cross from the left foot. And Douglas Costa, I don't know if he knows Aguirre is going to be there and all, but Aguirre with a good run down the center, right where you should be, a little outside to in, just a little bit of a curve pattern, and able to get that in. And start a little bit outside the post, moving into the post, right? Joveljic, and this is a criticism, Joveljic runs so vertically, Kevin, straight forward, that a lot of times he has no angle on things whenever he gets the ball. One of his best shots that he had on goal was a shot that he had because there was no angle, and he was able to fire it across, and actually it was a good save by St. Louis goalkeeper, right? So, you see that Joveljic had another chance where the ball was able to be cut back and he hit it left-footed, but he was leaning back. He didn't get good contact with it. It wasn't his preferred right foot, and he launched it over the bar. I think those are the 2 Joveljic chances that really popped up in this game. Judd comes on, holds the ball up, dishes out to Costa. Costa curls it around the backside of the defense, and Aguirre, loved the goal. Glad he got his first goal. He's so lucky that went in because he mishit it and it went back towards the goalkeeper, and the goalkeeper it bounced off the goalkeeper in order to get in. I don't care how it goes in. They all count. It's either a screamer or it dribbles across the goal line. It doesn't matter. But Aguirre put himself in the correct spot. And to your point, Kevin, Aguirre, I thought, had a very good substitute performance in this game. That was probably one of his better showings coming in.
Yeah, the goalkeeper did have it, appeared to have it wrapped up, and it did go off his arms. The cross I thought was beautiful. I mean, I thought it was an amazing, and that pass alone may have won him
the team of the week. Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
or the team of the match day. Sorry.
But the other thing you talk about, Jovelic's straight ahead runs. He's talked a lot about learning a lot from Chicharito and being on the field with Chicharito. I can never remember having seen Chicharito make a straight run. Everything is diagonal. Everything is curling. Everything is horizontal and left to right. It's just he never makes a straight run, and you would have thought that would be something that Joveljic would have picked up on, because it is too easy to defend him because he is going straight ahead every time.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think he'll make some. The one run that he had was an angled in from in to out. I just want more out to in if I'm Joveljic. Try to put yourself, have your runs end inside the posts. That's such a basic concept that I'm sure it's too dumbed down for even people to take it seriously. But Joveljic, on the one shot he really had, he's running from inside the post to outside the post. And when you make that run, you receive the ball, now you're outside the post, right? And so as you get deeper into the box, that becomes a harder angle to score from. Got a great shot off. Probably one of the best shots he's had in a very long time. But my question here is, does Preston Judd play a better style of play for what the LA Galaxy are trying to do? And if you start somebody like Preston Judd, which with Joveljic and a call-up likely going to be the case for the June 21st game against Sporting Kansas City, where Joveljic is likely to miss because he plays on the 20th, and it's not here. It's I think it's out of the country. In fact, I'm 100% sure it's out of the country because it's a qualifier. But he's going to go out and come back. So Judd's going to get that. Does Judd provide a better base for what the Galaxy are trying to do, which is from that forward position, either finding ways to get in behind and stretch the field. Judd's probably not that guy, but he can make those runs, or to hold it up and let momentum build from behind and then make those secondary runs after you ditch it off. To me, Judd fits that a little bit better than Joveljic. So we'll see.
But by the way, one of the things that we try to do is look at, okay, is, the Galaxy turned a corner? Is this momentum building?
Because you're not allowed to say turn the corner anymore. We've outlawed that on this show because it's like, yeah, go ahead, continue.
My point is like, you can't look at each match as a separate thing.
Mm-hmm.
What happened the week before and what's going to happen the next week, it's all tied in. All I wanted to say is that the Galaxy now are unbeaten since Chris Klein resigned, left, whatever.
In the league.
Yes. In MLS, yes, the last U.S. Open Cup game. Yeah, a win and a draw. Does that mean anything? And again, the 4-4-1 in the last 9 games in all competitions, does that mean anything? The fact that they played this game and Douglas Costa had his best game of the season, now that Chicharito's gone down, and I don't mean to say that Chicharito's holding him back. I just mean, is there a sense in the locker room that, oh my God, guys, let's buckle it up and let's go because we've lost our guy. We're going to have to do this ourselves now.
Right. Can we play like hypothetical scenarios or hypothetical Horatio as one of my favorite ever Horatio from what was it? What was the cop show that was wow? Da, 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 da. Why can't I think of it? Somebody in the chat room get it. By the way, chat room correcting me. They lost 2 at home. That was their first draw at home ever for St. Louis, and I appreciate that. Thank you. But anyway, hypothetical Horatio. Is there a scenario in which Greg Vanney calls Douglas Costa into his office after Chicharito goes down? He sits him down. He's like, Douglas, listen, we just lost Chicharito. These guys need a leader. It's going to have to be you. It can only be you, right? You're going to have to be the guy who does this. We need a guy who's going to step up and do something. And listen, how it goes down right now is basically everybody thinks that you're here just to take a paycheck. And you've only got a limited amount of time to sort of adjust that thinking of the people around you. So either you show up and you start acting like the player that we signed and drafted, or you're going to go down as a gigantic failure and, a gold digger that basically only came to the LA Galaxy to get your money. But you have a chance to lead a young team out there, and if you start playing at even 80% of what you're capable of doing for the rest of the season, this team can be successful, and you could be responsible for that turnaround, and the next contract you get will be somebody who said, that Douglas Costa, he put his head down, and he showed up, and he fought for the LA Galaxy, he got him back. Maybe we want that guy on our team. Right? Do you think there's any scenario in which Greg Vanney said that, or said, if you don't start playing better, I'm having you deported and arrested for your alimony thing that's down there? Either one of those.
The second part was more likely. I mean, I was as you were going through that, I was thinking, what are you smoking, and can I have some, please?
CSI Miami, by the way, was the name of the show. Thank you. I knew that. It was there. I'm glad you guys got that from my wonderful singing. Congratulations. All right. Yes.
I just don't. Costa's not that. I mean, yes, you could have that conversation with him, but I would have thought you would have had that even before Chicharito got hurt, because it was pretty obvious it seemed pretty obvious from. We're not in the locker room. We don't know what he's going through, but it seemed pretty obvious that he was not putting in a full shift and was not, not dedicated to the team, not part of it. He doesn't seem like a guy that has been a leader, doesn't seem like a guy that's been a locker room guy. So that would have been a talk I would have thought Vanney would have had earlier. Now with Chicharito going down, I'm looking around that locker room, and something happened with Douglas Costa. because of the way he played. It was just so out of character from the way he's been playing. But if I'm Vanney, I'm gonna have that conversation. I look around the locker room and there are other guys I talk to, Mark Delgado, Brugman, Caceres. Those are guys that I look to say, hey, you have the talent and the experience to lead this team and to fill in where Chicharito now can no longer do that. Douglas Costa should be the guy. I agree with you, but he has shown no inclination in his year and a half here to be that guy. So I don't know if it's a conversation I have now. I would have had it maybe a couple of weeks ago.
Right. It just seems to me like I think there was a lot, and Sophie and I were sort of talking about this, was whether or not Joveljic would sort of be that. Now that Joveljic is the guy, right? Like Greg Vanney goes, you're my guy. You're my guy. You said you wanted to be the future of the LA Galaxy. Now's your time to prove it. You have to be the guy that creates offense for this team. You have to be the finisher that Chicharito was. This is your chance to shine right now. This is how you become a good player right now, is to fill this gap that is in there. And so maybe by being the guy, right, being pointed at and saying, you're the man now, you're the guy we need, you need to go out there and show us stuff. We're depending on you. We're depending on you. All right. We're depending on you, Luke Skywalker. We're depending on you. You have to save the galaxy, as they say.
Oh, that's good. I like that.
I know. I was twisting. I was twisting.
Well, Pep is going to get these guys playing together when he comes.
I'm sure. But I'm just saying, so if you do that to Joveljic, which I think is reasonable to say, like you sit him down, and you say, this is what has to happen now, Dayon. This is what we need to do. You need to become the player that we know you can be. Why wouldn't you do that with Douglas Costa, though? He's a veteran. He at one time a world-class player. He has enough talent. Remember, it was, I think Eric and I were having this large argument about Douglas Costa. Can he do it? Right? Is he physically capable of doing the things, or mentally wanting to do the things to do it? And my thing was his mentality. He is perfectly mentally capable of committing to the LA Galaxy and putting in the kind of performances that we saw. I don't think it was great. I don't think it was complete, but for a guy who was only supposed to play 45 minutes, ended up basically playing 90, he played 89. Efrain Alvarez, by the way, getting the 1 minute sub. If there isn't a more garbage time sub ever in the history of it's Efrain Alvarez. Yeah.
His 100th career appearance, by the way.
Something interesting. But it's one of those things. I sit there and say he's mentally capable of doing it. I don't know if he's still physically capable, but you saw it, almost 90 minutes, that type of thing. He's there.
Here's where your argument might be right, that maybe some sort of fuse was lit under him. The fact that he has shown, his season so far, he's shown there's a lot of quit in him, I thought. I mean, I just didn't think he was applying himself. And any chance to sort of get out of work, he seemed to be going for.
Ah, yes. Good times. I thought we were getting there. I thought we were doing something there. Nope. All right. We'll go back. So sort of enough with Douglas Costa. I sort of want to put that to bed a little bit. But when we look at Douglas Costa, we look at the designated players. This is not going to be pretty for the LA Galaxy. I think we got Kevin. You back again? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. I wanted to get to designated players because we're talking about Douglas Costa, right? We're going into this. Now we have a problem again where, much like when Roman Alessandrini got injured and didn't get to play as a designated player in 2018, again, sort of mirroring itself, you're going to have Javier Hernandez, who's done for the rest of the season. So a guy who basically before this game played somewhere around 50% of the total available minutes that the Galaxy have had so far. Douglas Costa playing 13.5% of the total available minutes of this so far. Ricky Puig at 93.8% of the total available minutes. Again, if we go comparing to these things, how very much they are next to 2018. 50.7% there and 51.7% as your average. The overall average for the LA Galaxy since 2018 in designated players playing and being involved is about 57.4% of the total available minutes have been played by designated players.
I get the Alessandrini comparison, but this reminds me more of 2020, and it's close. They're statistically when Chicharito and Jonathan Dos Santos were both, in and out of the lineup because of injuries.
Right.
This just feels kind of like that.
Trust me whenever I say it's closer to 2018, where you had Romano. The only difference, what was the big difference in 2018? What did the LA Galaxy also have? You had Zlatan and you had Ola Kamara as well. So they were still able to recover because their best player was a targeted allocation money player, which is not the case right now. $5 super chat from...
So it was the DPs that year were Roman Alessandrini and Gio Dos Santos, Jonathan Dos Santos?
I believe so. Yeah, those were the designated players, and Zlatan was a TAM player, and so was Ola Kamara. So that was a good team. They should have kept Ola Kamara. I understood why they made the move at the time, and looking back on it, I think they should have kept Ola Kamara. $5 super chat from Sol says, I saw a rumor on Instagram that CR7 could be joining LAFC if they can't renew Vela's contract. Thoughts on this? COG is the GOAT of all podcasts, which is not too bad. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. I don't know. Sure. Why not? Could. The LA Galaxy could also sign Cristiano Ronaldo. They just have to get him to be released from his contract in order to do so.
He's making a lot of money.
He's making a ton of money, but I don't think he's very happy. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's like, I am done. I am out of here. See you later. Tear up the contract. Away we go. Give me.
I mean, if we're going to talk about that for a minute, just let me say that he's playing in Saudi Arabia, and if he's unhappy and he leaves, that is a huge, huge black mark against the Saudi league, and they're trying to recruit all kinds of top European players. The last contract offer I heard for Messi was 1.6 billion with a B for 3 years. His wife didn't want to go. Imagine that. The woman didn't want to live in Saudi Arabia. She didn't want to go there. That's why he didn't go. And people are saying, okay, fine, he didn't go there. He's still a spokesperson for the Saudi tourism agency. Messi is. But if Ronaldo leaves, then other players like Gundogan and others that are considering jumping, they're all of a sudden going to back up and say, well, wait a minute. If Cristiano didn't want to do, I want to get, involved in this mess. So, man, whatever Cristiano asks for from the Saudis, I'm sure that they're going to do their best to give it to him, because if he leaves and goes to LAFC or anywhere,
right,
that's a huge strike against what they're trying to do down there.
Yeah. I really, there's also, and people keep saying this, they're like, oh, well, probably all 3 designated player spots are going to be open this winter. No, they're not. I don't think Ricky Puig is going anywhere. I think the Galaxy are going to throw a whole bunch of money at him to keep him, because that's the thing. If they got a very large offer from somewhere in Europe, perhaps they would entertain that for Ricky Puig. And people I know are sort of like, hey, maybe he should have stayed in Europe then, that type of thing. And he wasn't getting playing time at Barcelona. Barcelona offloaded him knowing that he wouldn't be going to another European team right away in order to come back and hurt them. Going to the LA Galaxy was probably a little bit better of a deal in a lot of ways. So,
you and I had an interesting conversation before this show started about the DPs. Now they haven't put Chicharito on the season-ending.
Let me go over that. Let me go over that again, and then let's talk. Okay, so it's very likely the LA Galaxy. When we talked about this on Thursday as a hypothetical, sort of guessing that Chicharito might be out for the rest of the season, but it's almost 100% certain the LA Galaxy will place Chicharito on the season-ending injury list. They have until the start of the summer transfer window, which I believe is July 4th or 5th. And it goes until August 2nd or 3rd. Those are rough numbers in my head. I had them written down earlier today. I forgot to bring the piece of paper with me. But they have until the start of the transfer window in order to list him as on that season-ending injury list. If they do that, they will then be able to replace him with a designated player and with an internationals, right? So you basically get the DP spot back, and you get an international slot because Chicharito took up an international slot as well. So you get those roster spots back. The only rules are that the budget charge for the designated player, which I believe each designated player, if they're a full DP, costs $350,000 against the cap. That's called the budget charge to the cap. The only deal is that the budget charge to the cap has to be the same or less in order to replace the player. Well, all designated players take up $350,000 against the cap. Doesn't mean, and at least by my reading of the rules, and maybe MLS takes a different view of this, it doesn't mean that you can't spend more money on the designated player, just that the budget charge has to be the same. So technically, you could spend.
Messi is going to get $40 million, but he's only going to cost
$350. Yeah, $350 against the cap. So technically, you could spend more money and replace the DP and do all that stuff. So the Galaxy have the ability. Now the sanctions come into play again, just as you would expect. I was hoping maybe that they wouldn't apply to a season-ending injury replacement, but I'm told that of course they do, which makes sense because it's a punishment, and that's how it should be. So the LA Galaxy really hurt themselves here because, one, not being involved in this summer transfer market, straight up in the summer transfer market, is going to hurt them. And the fact that they could go out and shop for a designated player this summer with a replacement for Chicharito before his contract is up in the winter would, I think, for the LA Galaxy be a huge advantage of being able to participate in this summer transfer window.
And why is this summer transfer window so big?
One of the reasons the summer transfer, with the World Cup being over, this one, with the World Cup being over, guys are ready to move. And remember, there was a lot of hesitancy for guys to move last summer before the World Cup. And so you were sort of like, okay, everything, maybe those guys are going to stay the same. So it's expected to be a very crazy transfer market. Now, the options for the LA Galaxy, they can sign a free agent before the window opens. So they could list Chicharito on the season-ending injury list and then sign a replacement as a free agent. This also goes with any signing as well. So this is how the LA Galaxy can acquire players from now until the roster freeze deadline is. The LA Galaxy can sign free agents on either side of the window. And I have a very good source on that. So free agents on either side of the window, but they have to be a free agent, but you could get a designated player who's an international whose contract is up on June 30th, and then could come out and be a free agent. And because they're a free agent, you could sign them before the window opens on July 4th. Difficult to do, and I don't think the Galaxy will go that way. Or they'll do it after the window, where again, a free agent, all teams are able to sign free agents outside the window. The only reason you need a transfer window is to sign somebody who's already under contract, and so therefore you're transferring that player from one team to another within the bounds of the contract still being active and then new contracts being signed.
And that could hurt them in the window because there could be some aging European players, or not even aging players who after the World Cup want to move, but are have contract to a team, so they need to be transferred.
Right. And so if you're the LA Galaxy and you want to participate in this, and the other way that you can sign, by the way, I should be very clear, is to sign people from inside the league, Kevin. And you and I were talking about this because we know that Miami is going to have a lot of players coming in this summer, it seems like. And I know some of their designated players are on their way out as well and would be open for trades in that middle as well. So there are options there, and the LA Galaxy inside the transfer window could go and get one of Miami's DP internationals and bring them in because they already reside within the league. Because they reside within the league, the ITC is already owned by the league, so it's the ITC ban is where this all comes about.
Right. Two things on that. First of all, just quickly, why haven't the Galaxy placed Chicharito on the season-ending injury list already? Well, one, they don't really need to do it right away unless they're going to go sign somebody right away, so they have the time. Second is, my guess would be, I think Chicharito needs to wait for the swelling to go down for to have the operation. If they're not feeling rushed, they feel like they have a little bit of time, they may decide to wait till the operation just to, it doesn't hurt them to wait until the operation. Maybe it's not as bad as they think it is. I'm sure that it is. I'm sure the MRI told them it was bad, but that could be one reason why they haven't done it. But as far as the Inter Miami thing, that turned out to be really interesting to me because you and I have talked about this signing free agents within the league, and my argument was
they don't have to be free agents. They can be any players inside the league. Yes.
Yeah, but you were always talking about they could sign players from the league, and maybe the suspension won't hurt or the penalty won't hurt them too much because they could get players from the league and there'll be movement. And my thought always was the Galaxy need a game-changing type player, and no team in MLS is going to give them up. Right. Now, Inter Miami is. I mean, Victor Yola is one guy. He's a midfielder.
Joseph Martinez, by the way, is another one that could very well be on the chopping block. I mean, listen, you fell into the same trap everybody else does, thinking that everybody always just wants to screw over the LA Galaxy all the time. And the bottom line is Miami wants to be able to bring players in. And how do they bring players in? By getting rid of players, right?
Yeah, Miami has to. Now, Miami has a DP spot. Messi will go in there, but they do have other budget things. They're still under scrutiny from the league for their past misdeeds and signing people. Right. They have to move players. They have to create a spot on that roster, both financially and with international spots. And there's other people that apparently, allegedly, reportedly, rumor-wise, are coming in with Messi, some other international players. Miami's going to have to make some roster moves, and probably some pretty significant ones. And this is where the Galaxy could sort of be on the receiving end. Miami doesn't want to give them these players. It's not like Miami said, we're going to give you we don't want this player anymore. This will help you. We're going to help you out. No, that's not the deal. It's like we need to clear space because we've got a once-in-a-lifetime chance to land these big players.
Here's what I think is going to happen. This is my prediction on the summer. I do not think the Galaxy will exercise and try to sign anybody ahead of the transfer window. I wouldn't. There's too many things that are going to need to move. And then what the Galaxy are going to do is they're going to have, I'm guessing, a winger that they have targeted from some other team inside of MLS, and I imagine that they may go out and get that winger. Now, they're also going to keep an eye on designated players, Pizarro from Inter Miami, Joseph Martinez. There's going to be players, and there's going to be DPs available within the league this summer. I'm almost full, because What are other teams going to do? They're going to want to bring in a DP, Kevin. And in order to bring in a DP, they're going to need to trade one, right? They're going to be like, well, we have all our DPs loaded up. We want to bring somebody in, but we can't. So we're going to do that. So I think the Galaxy listen very intently during the transfer window and sort of plot to see what they can get and how they can do it. And what you're also going to do when that's happening is you're having your scouts go out, and they're already doing that right now. Who are the free agents? Let's start talking to them. Right. And so you're going to sort of say, okay, we have a free agent. We can do this, hey, we have this guy. And then the really cool thing is the European transfer window doesn't close. So it's not like these guys are going to be itching to find a team inside of the MLS transfer window. Okay. The transfer window in Europe and the EPL and all that stuff is still going to be open. So these guys are still going to be in their trading modes. So you could work a deal out with a free agent during the transfer window, and then as soon as the window closes, you sign that free agent and you have it. You can put together a plan during the window as you watch things move and as people become available and as things. That to me makes the most sense. Wait with patience until the window starts. Come in there, find the players you're looking for. A winger, a striker, those types of things. A DP replacement, a TAM player. Who's going to come in and probably be your winger. But the bottom line is find something that fits. Now, there's going to be a lot of people, Kevin, that say don't go out and sign a designated player. Leave it alone. Because you're probably not going to get a designated player for 6 months. You're probably going to get them for 2 years if you sign somebody. So you're going to be stuck with whoever you get for 2 years. And there's going to be people who tell you the best thing for the LA Galaxy to do is wait until the winter. But the winter doesn't have the same opportunities that the summer does. That's always the case, will always be the case. All right. And so, listen, am I saying that if you wait, you can't get somebody good in the winter? I'm not saying that, but go back and listen to Greg Vanney talk about all the hardships the Galaxy had in trying to get players in this winter. And just know that that's the same thing that's going to happen this next winter too.
And that's why so many teams keep DP spots open in the middle of the season, because look at the guys the Galaxy have gotten in the summer. Gio came in the summer, Robbie Keane. And now, as you said, at the end of a World Cup cycle and the start of a new one, this is when there's a lot of movement. That's why this suspension, the penalties over the Pavone signing, so hurt the Galaxy. First of all, they didn't have a DP spot to work with. Now, once suddenly has magically appeared, apparently, with Chicharito, this would have been an amazing time for the Galaxy to go out and get somebody. They had a DP spot. The marketplace is going to be buzzing. They could probably make some trades with Inter Miami Inter Miami needs allocation money really badly right now. They could have made a lot of moves, and they had that DP spot available to go get somebody. They can't do it the same way anymore.
Yeah, they have to do it differently.
They are going to have another DP spot coming up with I'm assuming Costa goes, but that might be one that you want to hold on to until next summer.
Yeah. And it very well could, maybe. I'm just saying, do not count out the ability for the LA Galaxy to go shopping this summer. And I think that you would want to participate in this transfer window if you're the LA Galaxy, because there's going to be people available. Di Maria is a free agent. That's the type of player that you can get on free agency, right? I know Mbappe is still under contract, and he's going to be moved over the summer, right? And so, yes, if you're really delusional, you could say, oh, if the Galaxy didn't have the sanctions, they could go after Mbappe. No. But so what we're saying is that you can see the LA Galaxy improve their squad this year and for the future if they get the right thing. I know that Will Kuntz is looking at that stuff, and this is the type of stuff that he was brought in to do, which is to find those guys that he wants. And free agency is across the entire world, right? So don't just think Europe and those other things, and don't just think aging players. If you're thinking about what Will's trying to do, he talks about youth and wanting to find, those next young DPs. And so that's also a possibility on free agency, looking around all the different places, South America or anywhere else. So,
the Galaxy, with the exception of Ricky Puig, the Galaxy recently have not had a ton of luck in bringing in these younger DPs. I mean, Ricky Puig is one, but Cabral didn't work out. Grant Sear didn't work out. Sega Koulibaly didn't really work out. Raveloson was a little bit older. They seem to have missed on more of those. Those are the DPs that the rest of the league are hitting on.
Right.
These young DPs that sort of are underrated internationally. That's where the rest of the league has really brought in some great play. That whole MLS 3.0 thing. The Galaxy have kind of missed on that in the last few years. I
mean, Ricky, certainly. I think Joveljic sort of. I'll tell you this. I think Aude, I think Caligari were great U22 pickups.
Yeah.
I mean, I think those were 100% hits as far as what you're trying to do and how you're trying to establish and use those U22 spots for the future too, right? Solid defenders, really good, really, I think, yeah.
Speaking of U22 and U20 guys, Jalen Neal called up for the national team today for the Gold Cup.
For the Gold Cup. Remember, everybody was really mad that he didn't get to go to the U20.
That was going to be my point. I mean, I wonder if I don't know what the communication is like.
Yes.
My understanding is the communication is very good between U.S. Soccer and especially MLS teams, but teams in general, but MLS teams especially. I wonder if U.S. Soccer came to them and said, "Look, we really like Jalen Neal for the U20 team, but we also want him for the Gold Cup." And the Galaxy said, "Well, we really can't lose him for the half the season, so why don't we just." Let's play the U20, let's play the World Cup without him, and you can have him for the Gold Cup. I don't know what those conversations took place, but it makes sense to me for them to say, no, you can't go to a World Cup, but yeah, you can play in this domestic competition, the Gold Cup. Great for him. I'm glad he gets to go, but I'm just trying to make sense of why it would, a couple of weeks ago it was no, and now it's, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's very. I'm glad for Jalen Neal. I figured something like this would come about. It seemed a little more obvious just in terms of how it was sort of playing out. 3 other LA Galaxy's players called up for international duty as we look. Dejan Joveljic, Kelvin Leerdam, and Eric Zavaleta. I think Zavaleta will be back in time. I think, or was it? It might have been. It was Leerdam who should be back in time. Only playing one game on the 17th, and so back in time for the 21st. Both Joveljic and Zavaleta have games, I believe, on the 20th and the 19th. Joveljic is on the 20th. He was called in the Serbian national team.
Theoretically, Zavaleta could play all, for the next month, though, if El Salvador advances, right?
Yeah, I guess, yes. I was looking at at where it was called him. Joveljic was called in for an international friendly against Jordan in Austria on the 16th, and then it was a European Championship qualifier against Bulgaria at Ludogorets Arena on Tuesday, June 20th at 11:45 a.m. Pacific time. You think he makes it back in time to play on the 21st? Play that, hop on a plane, fly over, do a little bit of rest, and then jump out on the field?
Well, I wonder if they'd keep him for the second game. I mean, what's the level of coordination between those teams? He's already been called up once this year. They've already seen him. They've got to look at him.
Yeah, but he's going to actually play. I mean, one is that they have a European qualifier.
That's a competitive game.
Yeah, a Euro game. That's an actual game, and so he'll be there for that, guaranteed. And then Zavaleta will play at Toyota Stadium, Toyota, Japan on Thursday, June 15th. And then let's see. I was trying to see if they had a different one. I had tweeted out the dates on everything, and there you can go check out Galaxy Podcast. And I sort of
now is El Salvador not in the Gold Cup? Is that must be the thing then? That's why he would be back. I thought El Salvador was in the Gold Cup.
No, and the Gold Cup stuff. Hold on, where was the I had the Jalen Neal. There it is.
My bad. I know Honduras is in the Gold Cup. Trinidad and Tobago, Nicaragua just got kicked out today.
They did. I was sort of reading through everything. The U.S. men's is part of the Gold Cup coming up, but that doesn't kick off right away, right? So the prelim rounds will run from June 16th to 20th at Drive Bank Stadium in Fort Lauderdale, right? So
the first U.S. game is the 24th.
Yep. So anyway, we'll keep an eye on Neal and sort of where he's at and how the LA Galaxy do with games, because the schedule coming up is actually pretty interesting. The LA Galaxy playing on the 21st against Sporting Kansas City, then away to Colorado. We've talked about those games for you. If you really want to pay attention to July, away to San Jose, difficult game. July 4th game at Rose Bowl against LAFC. July 8th, it's LA Galaxy hosting Philadelphia Union, one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference, has been, especially over the last 2-3 years. Vancouver, away at Vancouver on July 15th. That's a difficult one. And then we get into the Leagues Cup, where they'll host Leon, and then, of course, hosting Vancouver.
That game just got a heck of a lot more interesting, didn't it?
It did, very much so. So we'll see what that is. August, if you're paying attention. By the way, the Galaxy could have more games in Leagues Cup coming up. Those are just that first opening round of games, and the Galaxy don't leave home to play those. And then August looks like LA Galaxy hosting RSL, and then LA Galaxy hosting Chicago, and then away to San Jose again on August 30th. So that's sort of where it all rounds about. If you're paying attention to the LA Galaxy's season, 13 points now through 16 games, better than 2006, same as 1997. There's not too much better out there after that. That's it. So definitely on the bottom in terms of where the LA Galaxy are. In fact, if we plot their season so far against every other season that they've played, you can see down towards the bottom of that graph and that grouping, much more so than the top of that grouping. One last thing I wanted to get to, Kevin, and then we can sort of wrap this up. This is very interesting. This is very interesting to me anyway. Chris McGowan was a chief operating officer at AEG for a while. I think he went up to Seattle and did some stuff in Seattle, and then went off to Detroit and did some things. So he's been bouncing around a little bit. Chris McGowan used to be very tied into the LA Galaxy and what they did and sort of how they operated. And whenever he was at AEG, I think at one point he was even considered for Dan Beckerman's job. And I wouldn't have been totally surprised if his name wouldn't have popped up for a possible presidential run for the LA Galaxy. And so the fact that he was announced today with MLS, and Chris McGowan joins the MLS executive team. McGowan joins Major League Soccer as Executive Vice President, Chief Club Performance Officer, which I believe is part of their little grouping that is supposed to go out there and help some of the underperforming teams perform. And so the LA Galaxy, maybe he'll be.
He is working with the Galaxy.
That's right. That's right. And so it's super interesting to sort of see him go to MLS sort of at the same time the LA Galaxy presidency is open up. Listen, also it could be that Chris has outgrown even being with the LA Galaxy as a president. Could be. But he was always a very nice guy. Always sort of seemed to have his finger on what was happening in the LA Galaxy. And I know that he had been critical of the way that AEG had sort of been run and done some things whenever Tim Leiweke left and that type of thing. So very interesting guy. So now with MLS, I just thought that perhaps we would have heard his name come back, and we didn't. So that was just something that I picked up.
It's interesting you point out that he was critical of AEG. AEG has never struck me as the kind of company that wants to hire people who are critical, and I disagree with that 100%, because what you want is someone to come in and say, here's what you're doing wrong. Not someone to say, you guys are great. That's why you have this opening that you're hiring me for, because you're doing so great. No, you want someone to come in and say, here's why the opening's here, because you didn't do this, this, and this right. My pick for president, I think they're going to now, I think the Galaxy front office is going to be separate. I think there's going to be a business side and there's going to be a soccer side.
That seems to be the trend of rumors right now, correct? Yes.
Right. And I think there's a huge upside on the business side. They already have that Herbalife deal signed for another 4 seasons. There's a lot of possibilities now with Apple TV. I think the business, and they have those summer tournaments coming up now that AEG is involved with, bringing these big European teams like Real Madrid and Milan over. I think Tom Braun would be a really good candidate to slot into that
business
president's job on the business side, if he was allowed to continue to do those other things, which are really helping the AEG or be involved in that. And so that means that Will Kuntz would have obviously a big role, which he already does on the player side. One name that really needs to be mentioned here, a guy that I think could help the Galaxy in a lot of ways, is Todd Donovan. And Todd Donovan helps the Galaxy in a lot of ways because he's had a very successful, I think, 7-year run now as the president at Sacramento Republic. They beat the Galaxy last year, got into the Open Cup final.
Right.
He's a Stanford Business School graduate.
Yep.
He played for the Galaxy on multiple World Cup or MLS Cup winning teams.
Right.
So he knows he has the business intelligence. He has the smarts. He has the experience. He's been there. He's done it, and he understands the Galaxy culture. And that's why Vanney and Dan and Kevin Hartman and all these guys came in, because that was important to the Galaxy to rebuild, to get back where they were. They needed people to understand the culture. The Galaxy have always done that. Chris Klein was a former player. Greg Berhalter was here as a player. That people that understand that culture. And right now the situation is on the playing side, on the soccer side, Greg Vanney is the general manager. Greg Vanney is the coach. Greg Vanney is running the academy. That's too much. He needs someone that he can trust, and I think Will Kuntz will be that guy on player acquisition. I'm not sure Will Kuntz fits in on the academy side and all that stuff. I think that's where a guy like Todd Donovan would be an excellent person that the Galaxy should talk to, because they need some help right now, and Greg Vanney needs some of these things taken off his shoulders. He's just trying to I know he wants to do it all, but he can't do it all, and he needs a trusted lieutenant that can be his eyes and ears in some of these places. Fine, Greg makes the final decision. That's good. That's what it should be. But he needs someone to actually be there day to day, because he can't be.
Tom Braun, by the way, has been on this show before. Whenever we did On Location with the LA Galaxy, Tom came over and talked to us. Really nice guy. Really like him. Always a huge fan of Todd Donovan. You know that. Todd was absolutely one of my favorite players to cover whenever he was playing with the LA Galaxy. Extremely smart, extremely talented. I could see how he fits into that. I think that there will be people who will sit there and try to compare him to Chris Klein in terms of, well, you have another former player come in and, he's just going to be another guy and he doesn't have any top level experience. And I'll say that's where the difference sort of comes in is Chris Klein didn't have any top level experience. He was sort of groomed for that spot by the LA Galaxy and put into that position without having that top level experience. And I think ultimately it ended up hurting him. I think that Todd Donovan has had on the ground experience in what he's been looking at and in the level below where the LA Galaxy are, certainly in Major League Soccer. And I think it's going to be a huge step up. In some ways, you might say that Sacramento is a harder market to do the president job than maybe LA is. But in some ways, LA is so big and unique in a lot of things that it would be a difficult job, I think, for Todd to just simply slide into without any MLS experience. But having seen everything that Todd has done, I certainly wouldn't count him out. And I think that there are some severe differences in between Chris Klein and Todd Donovan, whether it all works out that way. And I always have a question. So if we're going to agree that, hey, let's pretend the Galaxy are absolutely going to they're going to split it. They're going to have a soccer operations guy and they're going to have a business guy. Occasionally decisions come about that have to be handled that involve both of those things, right? And certainly whenever you're talking about signing big name designated players, you're talking about business side and you're talking about soccer side, and they have to come together. So if you have co-presidents, who makes decisions? Who's ultimately in charge? And that's where I worry. I want a place where the buck stops, and I want somebody who takes that responsibility. So I don't think that's going to be Dan Beckerman, because the last thing Dan Beckerman wants to do is ever get involved with soccer again. I think that this year has made him way too involved in all the stuff that the LA Galaxy have had to do. And my personal opinion, he doesn't want that. He's in charge of AEG. He's got a multi-billion dollar corporation to run. He doesn't need to be micromanaging what's happening on an MLS team.
No, yes and no. I mean, I think you're right, but I think the reasons are different. I think that maybe he doesn't feel like he understands soccer and wants to be involved in those decisions. But my sense is it's more a sense of he doesn't want to be blamed when things go wrong. He wants to be there when they sign Zlatan and Chicharito and win MLS Cups, and he wants to drink the champagne. But when the team is 3-9, he doesn't want to be around and take the blame for that. 3-10, whatever they are now. He doesn't want to take the blame for that. So I think that's part of it. Yeah, I think you're right. He would have to be the tie-breaking vote, and again, I don't know if he wants to do that. But someone's going to have to step up. I mean, another way to do it is similar how we used to do it in newspapers. You had an advertising department, you had a editorial department, and we spent to travel to go to events, and then at the advertising side had to find the money for that.
Right.
If they want to go out and sign Zlatan for $7 million, Tom Braun's got to find the money to make that happen. And yes, they have to work in concert, but they don't necessarily have to approve each other's deals. I mean, I don't know how that would work, but Todd would be a guy that could bridge that gap. He knows the money side clearly. I mean, you don't get business degrees from Stanford not knowing that side, and he's done it in Sacramento. And you're right, LA's a different market, but also the Galaxy have way more resources that Sacramento doesn't have. And he built a winner there, got a stadium approved, by the city council, did a lot of things there that he wouldn't have to do here. And in fact, yes, the pressure's big and the spotlight's bigger, but the budget's bigger too.
Yeah, I would. If it's me personally, and I admit I'm very biased because I like Todd, and I think he's a great person, and I think that he operates with the utmost integrity as well, which is something I think the LA Galaxy need right now. All those things, I would give him a shot for sure. So, but we'll see. The rumors keep flying. We'll see if there's any actual names that sort of pop up at any point this time. Do you think they're going to wait till the end of the season, or do you think they're going to do something like mid-season?
I don't know. We both talked about how Dan Beckerman has been around Dignity Health Sports Park recently, kicking some tires, looking at things. I don't know who he's talking to or what questions he's asking, but it is not common for a Dan Beckerman sighting at Dignity Health Sports Park and the offices there. So that's happening. Whether that is it means a deal, something's coming soon. I really think the next couple of weeks or even months could dictate that. Is if the Galaxies continue to fall out of playoff contention, maybe they wait and figure like there's no need to rush this. But if the Galaxy keep doing what they're doing now, and goes back to the beginning of the show, I can't tell if this is a team beginning to find their rhythm or a team that has no chance. If they begin to look like they can make it to the playoffs. And we've talked about this before with the talent on this team. Could they make a playoff run 6-7 games? Yes, absolutely. They got to get there first. If they start showing some life, and it may be until we get through Leagues Cup, because that fixture crunch is going to be so much. And then you have the decision, is it too late or do we make the move now?
Right.
It is going to be the hardest decision that they've had to make in a long time because of this tournament in the middle of the summer that's really going to impact how that decision is made. It's going to be tough.
Let's give you some historical perspective real quick. Elliot McKinley was putting out the likely enough data to be meaningful, good, lucky matrix, right? So are you good or are you lucky? Are you bad or are you unlucky? So he had this wonderful chart in here. I want to give him all the credit for it as I blow it up a little bit for everybody to see. And what we see where the LA Galaxy are right there down there with the Colorado Rapids, all the way down on this furthest point directly on the axis. And basically he's pointing out that Colorado and LA Galaxy are the largest underperformances since 2013. So since they've been keeping the track of this data and sort of looking at all these things, that they are underperforming so greatly. And in this particular case, you would say underperforming is unlucky. As you read this map, right? So underperforming so greatly that they're almost off the chart. As a matter of fact, Elliott published 2015 to 2023 just so you could sort of understand the outliers that are involved in this. And if you sort of just look at all the groupings all the way across from 2015 all the way to 2023, and then you drop down to 2023 and you go all the way down to the bottom of the page and you see the LA Galaxy, and then you draw lines sideways to see if there's anybody else. San Jose in 2018 is kind of close, but the LA Galaxy are under them in that case. Colorado is underneath the LA Galaxy. So the amount of unluckiness or underperformance, and certainly underperformance if you've been watching the LA Galaxy, has been a key this year. The amount of unluckiness for the LA Galaxy or underperformance is some of the largest margins that they've ever seen. So as MLS gets more teams in there, I think this chart fluctuates a lot more, and we're seeing a lot of highs or a lot of lows because the randomness that gets involved with 29 teams and 30 teams and everything else that sort of happens in this can lead to teams who either greatly overperform, as they pointed out. FC Cincinnati is the largest overperformance since 2013, so luckiness, right? They also pointed out St. Louis City as one of those lucky teams. The other team can't pass to your striker every game type of thing for St. Louis, but FC Cincinnati and St. Louis, you talk about staying power, talk about what they're trying to do. I didn't think St. Louis was overpowering by any means, but when you look at this, they've been a little more quote unquote lucky. They've overperformed themselves a little bit more, where you look at the LA Galaxy have underperformed. Now, Kevin, my take on this is that that's great, and that's a really cool chart to look at, but it also means the LA Galaxy still suck on that chart. That's what it shows.
Go back to the year-by-year one.
Oh, the year-by-year? Hold on. I got it. Yes.
Because so you see it kind of goes what I've been talking about. This is a incredibly talented team that is not performing well, and we don't know, are they starting to hit rhythm or not? So you see where they are on that chart. They're way down there all by themselves, well, with Colorado, but way below everybody else. Way underperforming because why are they underperforming? Because they have a good team and the team's not winning. Now go to 2017,
right,
which we can agree is the worst Galaxy team up perhaps until now.
Yeah,
they're not underperforming. They had a terrible team.
They were bad. Yeah,
bad team. They performed just as they were supposed to. They were supposed to be horrible, and they were horrible.
Yeah, and
so that kind of puts this in perspective when we compare this year to 2017. 2017, that team sucked. This team is
not that
talented team.
Yeah. And it even shows if you go to this year and you look at Inter Miami is not underperforming. They're not good, right? And it's like, help us, Lionel Messi and friends. You're our only hope, right? That's sort of over here. So again, big shout out to Elliot for that chart, just to sort of close things up and put a bow on everything. So LA Galaxy, no game this midweek, no game this weekend. Don't come back until the June 21st game. I keep wanting it to be July, apparently. The June 21st game against Sporting Kansas City. And we've already looked at that schedule a couple times, but just one more reminder. Sporting Kansas City is the next game, then Colorado. Those are your next two, June 21st and June 24th. They come hot and heavy. As a matter of fact, you can go, oh, look, July 1st, the LA Galaxy will play San Jose. That's cool, at Stanford Stadium. Then 3 days later, oh, cool, the LA Galaxy will play at the Rose Bowl against LAFC. That's cool. And then 4 days later, LA Galaxy hosts Philadelphia Union. It's going to be a grind. And the bottom line is that don't expect any players to come in really at the front end of this window if you're a Galaxy fan. For me, the players are going to come in, and if they come in, they're going to come in at the end of the window and then possibly after the window. Those are the time frames in my mind that I'm seeing right now. Now, that could be that the Galaxy have already worked out a deal for, a winger that they're going to trade inside of MLS. They have that deal. They want to get it done at the front end of the window. That could happen. But as of right now, we haven't. We don't know that. So let's just keep an eye on. But my idea is that they're going to wait a little bit, Kevin, and sort of see how things filter through in the beginning part of that window.
So the Galaxy are at the bottom of the Western Conference standing, 7 points out of a playoff berth right now.
Mm-hmm.
Miami is at the bottom of the Eastern Conference, 7 points out of a playoff berth, but they're getting messy.
Yes.
Now, if they don't make the playoffs, Inter Miami, but the Galaxy do, does that mean that the Galaxy's former Barcelona midfielder Ricky Puig is better than Lionel Messi?
Obviously. What a fun question that'll be. I'd love let's put that to people whenever it actually happens, because right now the Galaxy are underperforming, and that will not get them into the playoffs. So
Bruce Arena he was really questioned about this. It was like a 5-minute interview after a game the other day about Lionel Messi coming. It was fascinating. It's on YouTube. If you haven't listened to it yet, it's really, really good. But at one point, someone says, "Is he going to play on? Will Messi play on turf? Because when you had Beckham, he didn't play on turf."
Right.
And Bruce Arena was interesting. He said, well, first of all, he's not going to play here because we don't have them anymore this season, which is good.
Right.
And he said there are many turf fields in the Eastern Conference. There's, I think, Charlotte, there's Atlanta, New England, where he won't play again. I think that's it. And Bruce Arena's thing was he goes to Atlanta and there's 80,000 people in the stands and Messi doesn't play. I don't know if that's going to happen.
Zlatan didn't play in Atlanta. Remember, he didn't want to play on the turf, so he did. But that's Zlatan. Would Messi want to do that? Now, remember, Zlatan, that was like one game, right? With Messi, it could be 2 games or 3 games. Whenever you're looking at Eastern Conference in conference opponents and how you end up playing some teams 3 times.
Play them in the playoffs. If they have to play them in the playoffs, Beckham did play on turf in the playoffs. So went up to Seattle and played on turf.
Absolutely. All right, that's where we sit right now. Overall, I think again, be cautiously optimistic about what you saw against St. Louis. That is a very difficult place to go and play and win. The fact they were able to come from behind and get a draw. I still am worried about the LA Galaxy and the fact that no matter how many times we watch them play this year, they allow the first goal way too many times. Right now, we're up to 9 games where they've allowed the first goal and only 4 games where they've scored the first goal. When they score the first goal, 3-1-0. When they score when they allow their opponent to score first, they're 0-7-2. These are not freaking genius stats that everybody can't understand. It's very simple. You put the ball in the back of the net, which is something the Galaxy have not done. You score goals first, you have a better chance of winning. All right. Anything else, Kevin?
Nope. I hope my internet holds on here till the end.
Just barely. Let's see if we can make it all the way to the end. All right. If you're looking for Mr. Kevin Baxter, it's at KBaxter11. Head on over to latimes.com where you can find all of Kevin's wonderful soccer writing and all that fun stuff. Please check him out. If you're looking for me on Twitter, it's at JGuesman, JGUESMAN, and of course at Galaxy Podcast. CornerOfTheGalaxy.com is where you can find all of our podcasts, all of our articles, anything we choose to write will be up there on CornerOfTheGalaxy.com. I hope everybody had a good week. We hope to see you on Thursday night where we will find something to talk about once again. LA Galaxy off for just a little bit. All right. For Kevin the Panda Baxter, I'm Josh Patrick Guesman. You've been listening, you've been watching to our little Corner of the Galaxy from the box. Have a great one, everybody.
You've been listening to the Corner of the Galaxy podcast on cornerofthegalaxy.com. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Galaxy Podcast. And be sure to check out and subscribe to iTunes, Stitcher, and Facebook by searching for Corner of the Galaxy. Fans, we thank you for listening, and we ask that you be kind and courteous to your neighbors as you leave the podcast. We thank you for joining us and look forward to seeing you again. Until then, I'm Michael Araujo, and on behalf of the entire Corner of the Galaxy crew, goodbye, everybody.